Internet Radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the Internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. We're Dal and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul, and everything in between. We are here every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Pacific, and we welcome you to join us. We talk about everything that's good in your life and wellness and everything in between that. So we welcome you today. I am one of the co-hosts. I am Debbie Carlin Boyle. I am a certified personal trainer, fitness instructor, and a certified nutrition and health coach. And here to my left is my beautiful co-host.
Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Debi Jones, and I'm a certified spiritual psychology coach. And I specialize in the areas of personal growth, relationships, and recovery from narcissistic abuse and codependency issues. And today, oh my goodness. Oh, sorry, I thought you said something.
No, I didn't. I'm just waiting because we got a great show, and I'm waiting for you to introduce.
Yeah, we do. We have an amazing show today, and I'd like to introduce the CEO and founder of the fashion label Equites, Gingi Medina.
Hello.
Hi.
So
welcome, Gingi.
Let me give you a little background.
Round of applause.
Gingi has a fascinating story to tell. We're very excited.
Oh.
So after 12 years in the fashion industry, feeling a little disillusioned with the so-called glamorous high world of high fashion, she left to create her own line of clothing. And it's just not any old line of clothing. Gingi is the creative genius behind Equites. It's a unique line of sustainable fashion where equestrian life meets high fashion, or should I say collides, because it's a really dynamic line of clothing. So influenced by her Native American roots, Gingi's mission is to respect our planet and lessen the carbon footprint by using consciously sourced materials that you procure them from indigenous tribes, I think, from around the world?
Yes, majorly on anything that's leather or skin or something like that. We try to get it from as natural a source, and wherever the entire use of the animal has been, understood to be used thoroughly. And the people who do that the best are indigenous peoples, natives of any country, not just America. I also work with, Aboriginals in Australia and also people down in Peru. We just got connection to some people in Alaska. In fact, some natives from Alaska. I'm very excited. We have some furs coming into some of our jackets. Maybe I'll give you a little teaser. We're going to have some buffalo fur.
Ooh.
And if that's
beautiful.
Not the warmest jacket you can possibly imagine wearing, I don't know what is.
So I actually slept in a buffalo skin a few times.
You understand what's going on.
Yes. Yes.
I've only had buffalo meat, so we'll have to get into the...
Well, before we actually go into all of this, I really, what we love, Debbie and I, we love to hear your history. We want to know where you grew up, because there's often such a connection between how you grew up and what you do today. So give us a bit of background about yourself.
Okay. I was born and raised here in Los Angeles to my mother and father, Deborah and Ernest Medina. And
good name.
Thank you, right? Exactly. And my father is a musician, and that's probably where I got my crazy from. Thanks, Dad. And my mother, she was just this woman who I always looked to for, she was just so graceful and always had such honor. And she always, every time we would have a meal, she would take as many leftovers and as much of the bread home as possible. The bread was for her, mind you, but she always gave our extras to anyone that was homeless or someone on our way home. And she was always helping people, and I just, that's just her way. It was just the way. There was no any other way.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I'm pretty sure I got a lot of that from her. And working in fashion, when my mother became sick with cancer, I then started really looking. I wanted to be a doctor prior to being in fashion, which is a very opposite.
Different. I think it's completely opposite.
I had the same thing, though. I wanted to be a doctor, a psychotherapist, and I ended up going into fashion. So
right. There's a correlation.
There is.
I'm not the only weirdo. Fantastic. So yeah, I started studying a lot of more natural ways of medicine because I understood the body quite well. I was on my way to medical school from the age of 18 when I was graduating. I finished my high school credits early, and I was part of the, getting the first cadaver at my school and things. I was very active. And then my mother one day came into my room and said, "You can't go to medical school because I'm going to get cancer." And I looked at her and I said, "Are you crazy? How can you?" But I didn't contest her because her mother passed away from breast cancer, and I knew that she was imprinted from a very young age, and that's what she thought, and that was her fear, and I just respected it, and I stayed home. And in turn, then I found myself in fashion. And like I said, when she got sick, I then started looking into herbs and natural ways of medicine and naturopathy and homeopathy and detoxifying the body. And it became this obsession of mine, and I got back into learning about the body by way of nature.
Did you use what you'd learned with your mother to help her battle her cancer?
Yes.
Oh, you did.
Yes.
And what kind of cancer did
She had breast cancer.
She did have
And
breast cancer.
how soon after she came in and told you that did it actually manifest in her body?
It was maybe 3 or 4 years after that. In
Really?
fact.
So she was that.
I'm just wondering if she had a sense that it was already there.
Yeah.
My mother always said the body is the best machine and alarm system possible. If it tells you something, that's where the problem is. So listen to it.
True.
She said it'll tell
Very
you what's
true.
wrong. Listen.
It's a big part of my
And
practice.
Definitely.
Telling people
and
to
it's,
listen.
if you're heartbroken, you're going to have heart issues. It's not brain surgery, really. It's just the way. It's the way of nature and everything. And as with nature, which is why I'm so connected to it now, and which is why I'm a vessel to be a messenger for it. And I'm utilizing the world of fashion because when you say fashion, people listen. It's something everybody wants to be a part of and know about and all the things, but little do they know how damaging that actually is, not only to the planet, but to your body. I mean, there's thousands of chemicals on a T-shirt alone. Yeah. And after understanding what happened to the human body, watching my mother's body deteriorate, helping to fix it, of understanding what nature does versus what chemicals do, I then applied that to my clothing when she passed away. That was the way that I turned my pain into life, and I promised that I would take these experiences and bring more through my creations and offer life instead of offering chemicals and destruction. I started to heavily research things and try to find things that didn't really exist. My mind was a bit ahead of what was available to me. And so I just kept looking, and I started to develop things, and I've developed textiles before, and I understand the processes very well of fashion, and I understand the processes very well of the body, and I also didn't want to put more clothing that had chemicals near any parts of the body, the lymphatic systems and all of that. I do tons of yoga, so it doesn't make sense to me that companies like, big brands want to, give you these exercise clothing and then you leave a yoga class and your skin is dyed. This is unacceptable. Yeah.
Well, I could not agree with you more. Yeah. Well, I believe so strongly in that, in keeping those chemicals organic and away from your body.
Get to that a little later because we're going to really delve into that and the why and how that you do what you do. But just before we leave your family situation, I know that you have a very interesting heritage. So can you tell me, where you're? I know you're half. Or you give us the details.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm half European and half American. My European side is actually my mother's side. She's Spaniard and Irish. She had very fair skin and auburn hair, and my grandmother had green eyes. And my aunt was just over from Scotland last week, so she looks like my mother. And I was like, oh my gosh, the leprechaun! So we call our side of the family leprechauns because we're all quite small and they're fair skinned. I'm dark skinned, but anyway, the other half of me is Mexican and 2 parts of native different tribes. Even I'm Apache and Mayan, so I have a lot going on.
Do you have siblings?
Yes, I have sisters.
Sisters. How many?
3.
3.
Yes.
And are they all with both parents?
No, I have one sister that's with my mom and my father, and then my other 2 sisters are from other marriages. Like I said, my father's an artist, so if you can imagine.
Okay. Yes. Little Picasso.
Yeah, precise.
And you grew up where?
Here in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles.
Yes, yeah, born and raised.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yet you speak, you mentioned you speak many languages.
I speak parts of many languages. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in other countries. I've lived in other countries for years at a time, months at a time. I was kind of a nomadic traveler. as well after my mom's passing, just kind of discovering how I wanted to channel all the things I'd experienced. And I was pretty lost after, that, and wanting to not work in the fashion industry. I thought my career was over, and one of the people that I loved the most was gone, so nothing made sense. And I went to go discover myself and how I was going to
How long ago was that?
Yes.
That was 7 years ago.
That's when your mother passed, was 7 years ago. And did she have advanced stage breast cancer?
I can't remember if it wasn't advanced. Well, I guess maybe because they told her she didn't have very long to live. I guess that might be advanced. But as she thought it was her doom, I told her that, that wasn't a good enough answer for me. And I told her that, we would fight it together, and she wasn't alone, and there was answers. And, I guess I just don't take no for an answer. So we found answers, and we detoxed her several times, and doctors called it a miracle about 8 times over the 8 years.
Oh, incredible.
We made things disappear, and, they'd come back and whatever. I just think that it was her fate. And then, like the body, we can tell ourselves things, we can create things, energies, molecules, they, combine and deform and things like that. I mean, it's a lot of psychology, and, where you allow your body to go, and, sometimes things can take over if you're not strong, and it just is what it is. You have to create an environment, and you have to be strong, and you have to have hope for something in the future, and that's also a life force within itself. So,
of course,
and diet is huge. Everyone,
yes,
well, and also environment. I mean, so many people say, "Oh, cancer's on the rise," and I mean, I just think there's so many.
I don't believe that at all.
There's so many elements. There's environment,
there's a lot of toxins.
What we put on our skin, the way we wash our hair.
It's your lifestyle.
Yes,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. And there's things that we think we're living a healthy lifestyle. We think we're using certain products that are good for us, but like you said, the chemicals and the clothes we wear.
That's just exactly the purpose of Equites, really, is that I was not pleased with everybody calling themselves organic and everybody calling themselves sustainable and green. And it's like, I actually wanted to formulate an entire board that would test and look into the companies and say just how much of your efforts are actually this. Just because you use one material of organic cotton or something does not make you a green or sustainable company. I mean, you then put chemical dyes to do your screens. And that alone takes away the certification of the level of organics and whatever.
And especially with cotton, especially with cottons, because they're required. A lot of manufacturers are required to put fire retardant chemicals on their clothing, and it's so
toxic for you.
I mean, I would buy raw rolls and bulks of canvases, and I was redoing a restaurant and covering the ceilings and things, and almost falling off the ladder with the toxins just from
I'm very sensitive now. My body's been so clean from all those kinds of chemicals that I can hardly be around it. I'll get a headache straight away. It doesn't.
Well, you go into a fabric store. I mean, I was a costume designer too. I used to go to International Silks and Woolens and literally want to throw up. I mean, the smell.
Which is your body talking to you and telling you there's something not right in here. So let me ask you, so when you started in the industry, I think we'll talk about you apprenticed for a while, you just wanted so bad.
Yeah, I worked for free for a lot of years.
Did you notice this right away and say, I got to do something about it?
No,
or did
it wasn't in the beginning of it at all. Hey, I wanted to, from a very young age, I think I watched my first fashion show. I was 9, I remember very vividly, with my mom. And I saw something come down the runway, and in my being, I had thought of this piece already. I thought I wanted some. I thought of this, and I told my mom that, and she kind of laughed at me, and she's like, "Oh, honey, you're so cute," and like pat on the head, And I was like, "No, really, Mom, I've thought of that before," and she, I was 9. I mean. The conversation went nowhere.
Was it a show? Were you in the audience? Were you
live?
No,
we were watching it on TV.
Yeah. I found that happens an awful lot. When I was designing, I would think of something, and then within 3 months, somebody would have it out. It would be, I'd see it in the store. Because I used to use a lot of influence from vintage clothing. But I just think it's a collective consciousness. Yeah. I think there's an idea out there, and you just either plug into it, but there's a lot of other people plugging into it as well.
A lot of people have the same ideas as well, and that's okay. I mean, that's wonderful. I
don't know if there's that many people who've had your idea, though.
This is one of the most unique things I've ever heard of.
Exactly.
So
stunning.
So you just wanted to be
I just
in the
wanted-
industry
yes.
some way, somehow.
Yeah, I used to throw events for, like in Hollywood and whatever, and a lot of celebrities would come around and to these nightclubs and what have you. And at one time, well, not one time, but several times, this very well-dressed gentleman would sit at the table that was, for the people throwing the event. And I went and sat down next to him, and I was like, "Who are you? You come to my party a lot, and you just dress so well. Like, what is your story?" He just was. And he's like, "Oh, darling, I'm a fashion designer." And I was like, "Of course." And we became friends. And he was a leather worker, and he had, he just had this fabulous jewelry and fabulous coats and what. I just loved him. And after a couple of years of him coming to my events and being friends with him, I said to him, "Listen, what would you say if I said that I would come and work for you for free, and you just taught me everything you knew?" And he looked at me, he was like, "Oh, darling, I'd say you're crazy." And I said, "Well, I'm not known to be the most sane person." I was like, "How about I show up around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning?" He was like, "Oh God, you're crazy." And he's like, "Girl, do whatever you want." He's like, "I sleep there sometimes, so good luck." And he thought that I was going to shy away from it, but I didn't. Actually, I slept there sometimes as well. And I worked leather with him for the good part of a year and learned how to make metal jewelry, and we made crazy
Can we
things.
share his name? Or his
Yes,
line?
yes. His name is Jabron Juni, and he has a line of skin. It's called Skin USA, SKKIN USA.
Oh,
And
I've heard of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was like ahead of the Chrome Hearts thing. I
Okay.
really
Oh,
think that they
yeah.
kind of, maybe I won't even say it. But Jabron, you're an artist, babe.
Yes.
It's all you.
Wow.
Yeah,
You're the
he's
original.
very talented. He's
Yeah.
opening stores all over Asia, and he really outfits the Asian kind of rock stars, and he's very well known. And I'm honored to have some of that knowledge, and I'm sure it shows in my work as well.
Yeah. I mean,
So, go ahead.
well, I don't know if we're going to get that to right now, but so what was the point where you started there, and then how many years later did you become disillusioned and decide that this was just not what
that
you
was
wanted
what I
to
was
do?
gonna say.
About a decade later, probably,
yeah.
really. When I actually just realized the industry, the way of the industry, by the time I was in it, nothing was working, and my mind didn't wrap around like the way that they handled orders and the way that they demanded things, and there was no real creativity happening whatsoever. I was in design positions, several of them. I was head designer, I was assistant design, I was conceptual design, I was graphic, I was all the things, and every time they asked me for something, it was more systematic and mechanical and not very creative. And I felt like a wilting flower. I didn't feel like my talents were being utilized, and I didn't understand how I was in these positions and not doing what I thought I was going to be doing. And so I started questioning a lot of things. And then big orders would come in, and they would tell me to slash them and send them to landfill, and I that's when it really hit me.
That shocked me when I read that.
Slash the clothes.
Slash them.
Yes.
And I offered solutions. I'm
Yeah.
a solution-based person. I said, no,
Right.
let me sell them to another lower-end retailer.
Yeah.
Like someone else will take them. I have other buyers. Let me just shop them around. And the
or
answer
give
was
them away to people that
That
don't
really
have clothes.
need
Anyone.
them.
Yeah.
anyone.
Yes.
I came up with several ideas, and they said,
Instead of-
absolutely not, Gingi. Do what we said and reorder is what they said. And I said, reorder? We have the stock.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we need to beat last year's numbers. And that was it for me.
Yeah, it's an industry
That was
Unbelievable.
it.
And you said, and I
it's-
read, I think in an
Enterprise.
interview with you that you said, what's the percentage? Like 70%?
70%. 70% of all garments made each year go straight to landfill.
Oh,
I mean,
what a
I
waste.
just could not believe
Can
that.
you?
And filling
Even
our landfills.
because you
so
walk
no
into a
wonder why you
department
do what you do.
Yeah.
Right. You walk into a department store and you see the same thing every year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, same thing.
Unbelievable.
That's why it's always there.
Yeah.
And they're reordering.
Wow.
It's not selling, and they're reordering. And that didn't make sense to me. I was like, why does anyone... That's why nobody designs. That's why there's nothing new. That's
Well,
why...
it's called the fashion business for a
Oh.
reason.
Right.
That
It's
the
a
business
business.
should be business of fashion instead, because it is such a. I used to be a costume designer, and I had always fantasized about having my own line of clothing, and I'd had enough money put away where I approached a designer and I said, "How about your story?" I said, "How about I work for you for nothing to learn about the fashion industry?" And I did it for about 3 months. I was completely over it. I went scurrying back to my wonderful life.
And what was it, may I ask, that got you out, made you disillusioned?
There was a lot of really, I don't want to call, stealing and just
of
the
ideas.
ugliness of the whole thing.
The whole industry. So that's what
So
I'm saying.
ugly.
The disillusionment is
Yeah.
in layers. It's not
Yeah.
just one
Yeah.
thing about it. It's you know the facade. It's the ego. It's nothing is really about the thing.
And the work environment. I mean, going
Everything else.
downtown and being in these,
It's terrible.
grungy
Yeah.
old places. And
It's not glamorous
it's
at all.
not,
by the way.
exactly.
No.
That's what I was going to
No,
say.
but many industries aren't. The food
Sure.
industry obviously
Yeah,
isn't
for sure.
glamorous either,
Mm.
and you know it's but
It's
but
a lot more glamorous than the fashion. I went straight back into the film industry. I really did. I loved it after
You
that.
ran
Well,
into
it
the
depends
loving
on
arms
what
of the
end of the
film
food you're in
industry.
the
Food,
restaurant
I thought you
end.
said film.
No,
Ah,
food.
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 Yes, no, food.
Yeah,
can be
the
very
film
tough too.
industry
If
also
film is
isn't-
better than
isn't-
fashion,
Yeah.
God
Film
bless
is,
it.
which
Absolutely.
I was in for better part of 35 years, 30 years, and that is not very glamorous either.
Yeah,
You know
sure.
what we have in our heads, and then the actuality and the reality
Yeah.
of doing it and being in it, and you know, is people are like, this. I didn't think this was what it's like, because you see the edited, beautiful version, and the same thing with clothes. You see the finished product.
You see the campaigns.
And,
you see the
and
models.
that's what your eye
Yes.
is attracted to.
Yeah.
And the same thing.
Well,
in
I was a gypsy,
any-
and I just enjoyed that sort of a different location every, week or month, whatever. And
Living out of
and-
your suitcase.
Yes, I just loved that, the energy and
Welcome to my life.
Yeah, I really did.
Yes,
and just
which is
being
why you
in-
speak so many languages.
Yeah. So I definitely preferred that.
Yeah, but that's the artsy part of you, which is
just doesn't
yeah,
like sort
which
of
is
routine too much.
or the 9 to 5 rigid.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of why we do why we all do what
That's
we
why we're
do,
different,
and
yes.
why we
Yeah.
all own
Yes.
our own companies, and that way we can infuse
Precisely.
our lifestyle and our beliefs instead of having some bigger industry dictate to us.
Right.
So going back,
Yes.
so now you're learning all of this. You're working for free, and then you, once you've learned, and now you know, and you see all this waste.
Yeah.
What happens after that?
I quit my jobs. Actually, you know what? I was almost going to be fired from that last one anyway. I was successfully fired from probably every position I held in
Which
the
is
industry
a good
because I
thing.
asked questions, and they don't like questions. They don't want a challenge. They don't want you to get them out of their system that's working with the numbers that they're used to, and just plug the numbers, do your job, show up, and I said, why am I even a designer? And when to my bosses, and that's not really what you want to say when you have a position. Why am I in this position? And yeah, it really upset them, and some thought that I wanted to take over their company with my new ideas. And I said, with all due respect, I don't want your company. I just want to do my job. And I wasn't being. I didn't have the opportunity to do that. So I left the entire industry, and I swore off fashion. I would never work in fashion again.
Yeah.
It's not
and
my
what did
industry.
you do and how long were you out of the industry, and what did you do during that
That was
time?
when my mother got sick, and that's when I just dedicated myself to learning the body again, and that's when I went into natural medicines, and I got 3 yoga certifications, and I went and did Reiki, and I'm 2nd degree Reiki healer as well now, and I offer it to people whenever I'm around and there's a person in need, and I'm happy to have the knowledge, and it's like diamonds for your body, and it just as well I take care of myself the same way, and that's imperative because I have to be very strong to do the work I'm doing now.
Give us for people listening that don't know what Reiki is, just give us a brief description.
All
of
right, so
what that is.
Reiki is essentially utilizing, so just how you get a radio signal or a TV signal, they're all particles and they come from the air and you can't see them, but then they make a picture, right? So that's the most solid way you can explain Reiki. It's just such that when you become a healer, in that sense, you get cleared kind of, and you get these symbols dropped into you from the ancient ways, and basically you're clearing your energy, so you become then like a straw. And then with yourself straw-like, like a vessel, you bring in energy, because there's a kinetic energy, and there's all kinds of things, and you bring that in, and it moves things inside of the body. So when you put your hands on someone, it's coming through you and it's going into this person.
Beautiful.
And you can't explain it better than that, because I actually am a skeptic, so I challenge these things. I'm like, yeah, right, these are going to work. Let's see, but I go and I do because I have to know. I'm a curious mind. So I did the first Reiki because I was curious. I did the second because it worked. The 3rd degree is master. So I was helping people with cancer. I had a friend of mine that her mom owned a natural spa in San Diego. It's called Visior, and they have these wonderful products, and they just smell like heaven. And the mom is really cute and sweet, and she makes all these things in her little laboratory underneath the spa. And then there's like this gorgeous old home. It's a historic 1920s home, and they have their little spa, and they do massages and all these things. So the sister, the daughter of the mother, rather, she came to me and said, listen, my brother is battling cancer, and I know that you have this knowledge. Would you come and see if it works? Just come and help my brother, and we'll gladly, give you like massages and spa treatments and things in exchange. Would you work barter with us? And I said, I'd be honored. Totally, let's see. And I was working with her brother, and the mother called me about a month later, and she said, whatever it is you're doing, keep doing it. Wow. And I was just blown away.
Did he go into remission?
What they were, his things were, yes, they were disappearing, his tumors and things. And I had no idea. You know what I mean? I just was doing whatever it was that.
Can I ask you? So you don't put your hands on, but
you don't have to touch them
the
physically.
Energy. You're just really close.
It's an intention. It's kind of like you open yourself and you meditate in these moments, but you don't feel anything. I don't feel anything, but legitimately I'm getting the healing because it's coming through my body and also the person. And actually one time I had a person on the table, and when the session ended, she said, oh my God, when you put your hands over my eyes, I started swirling through the universe. I was definitely moving. I definitely wasn't here on this table. And I said, well, that's awesome.
That means it's
working. But it's the intention.
Good talk.
Yes.
Yeah. It's the intention you set before you do it. That, like you said, you clear yourself.
I clear my mind because I shouldn't be thinking about anything else
exactly.
really. And my feet are planted on the floor, which is earth. So that's really
and
important.
You create that vessel, and you allow the universe, whatever you want to call it, to work through you.
Yeah. However,
we do that as actually as a spiritual psychology coach. I very much we do a little meditation before. I do a meditation before my clients get there. I clear that. I am just purely a vessel. I don't have no intention. I have no agenda. It's just a wide open vessel for whatever
no expectations.
Needs to come through. And it's you're just facilitating.
Precisely.
You're just sitting there opposite something and allowing,
And that's what we're all here to do in some way, And then my large way is creating Equites so that I have a platform and I have something feasible and, to offer to people and say, here you go, this is the way, and let me show you how.
Yeah.
Which you want to get into. We're about to get into.
I was just
going to
say,
on the second
half. We're going to really dive into Equites. But before we get there, so I'm just curious, why did you decide to go back, leave the sort of healing arts and go back into fashion? What made you
good question.
make that
I'm
decision?
just so I needed to create. Again, I think that was it. Yeah. I needed to create, and I needed to, after my mother passed, I then revisited. I was like, well, now I don't have to worry about this other person, and now I can live my dream, whatever that is, whatever it looks like. And I wanted to create again, and I found something that I could do that and plug that into, and then I applied all of my teachings of the body and nature, and I applied that to the clothing. So
beautiful.
Before we get, I'm really curious what languages you speak and where they came from.
You want to know?
So and then we'll talk about all the places that you've lived and why and how they relate to your clothing
and how
line.
they show up in your creations.
Exactly.
So you want to know the languages that I speak parts of? And
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's see.
You teased us. You said
I did.
Unusual.
Okay. So Icelandic, Slovakian. Thai, Bahasa, Indonesian, French. I'm teaching myself German. Oh, and Latin was the first one, but I taught myself that when I was 16. So,
but the only one I don't recognize there is Bahasa.
Bahasa is the other part of Indonesian. So there's Bahasa, but they're two separate. They have different versions of different words mean different things. Like you can use, the word is the same, like pronunciation, but they mean two different things in Bahasa or Indonesian.
Yeah, wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So what about a little Gaelic there?
Oh, yeah, I don't speak Gaelic, but I have a Gaelic tattoo.
Yeah, you have to
have the most,
bring them into the camera and let people see.
There's lots going on.
And they all, and I imagine they all have
naked
meaning.
Yeah, everyone is.
Every single one.
Yeah, it's like a branding my story of my life on my body. Every time something really monumental monumental happens. That's where it goes.
I really love that.
beautiful.
I only have two, and they have meaning, and
Yeah.
most people do have meanings.
That's
with
right.
their
We are the
tattoos.
canvas, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I just actually really do that. I paint myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
I know.
Well, we're
It's
going to
beautiful.
go to
Yeah.
break. We're
Just
going to
a
take a very quick
2-minute
2-minute
awesome
break.
break.
We're going to come back. We're going to get into what you do now, why you do it, how you do it, and
Sweet.
how other people can get involved.
Please get
All
involved.
of those things.
Yes,
So
exactly.
stay with us. We're Del Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul. We'll be back in 2.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hi, I'm Del.
And I'm Debbie.
And as a special thank you to our listeners, we'd like to offer a complimentary coaching session with either one of us or both of us if you so choose. Check us out on our individual website, deladjones.com and fitbydesignla.com. We can work with anyone, anywhere, in person or remotely.
Contact us through our Facebook page or website at Del and Debbie Mind, Body, Soul, and leave your info and we will get right back to you. We look forward to assisting you in living a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life.
I got this feeling inside my bones. It goes electric.
Hi,
wavy
welcome
when I
back.
turn
We're Del
it
and Debbie's
on.
Mind, Body, Soul here on LA Talk Live. And we have the fabulous Gingi Medina with us. And she's been telling us all about her fascinating life, her former career in high fashion. And now we're going to learn about how you came about designing your own incredibly unique line of clothing. So Equites. So let's start there.
Right. I was just applying essentially when I decided to start creating again. I said, okay, you've really got to think about this because you know all the parts of the industry. Why are you going back? And I wasn't going back to the industry is what I decided. I decided I was going to create my own part of that. And I didn't want to be in high fashion, and I didn't want to be in contemporary. And contemporary is essentially everything between Forever 21 and Prada. So it's everything. Yeah. If you're not Forever 21 and then producing shirts at 2 cents and having sweatshots and things like that, or Prada with a $20 million campaign on the Great Wall of China, you're kind of good luck.
Yeah.
I knew that it was crazy to try and enter any one of those sectors, and then didn't want to do it how everyone did it. So I just kind of started with like a seed pod of an idea, and I was like, what do you want to do? Do you want to just make maybe custom pieces for your clientele or something? Because I had celebrity clientele, and they were always asking me if hey, would you dress me for this or do this or whatever. So.
And when you say clientele, because I don't think we touched on this, you actually got into the styling industry, for working on TV shows, high fashion, still photography.
When I was in the industry, we would do things like movies and stuff through the labels that I worked for anyway. So I was already working on film through those labels. They kind of keep us hidden and in cages, and they feed us once a week as designers. But
unless you give them lots of free product, and then we have something called product placement.
Yeah, we did that too. So I learned all of those things working with all the other labels. But then I just have my friends. They make movies and they make music and things like that. And I would go with them to their premieres, and they'd say, come over, let's get ready, let's go to this premiere. And we're getting ready, and they're like, I have nothing to wear, and Jen, help me. And then we'd do them up, and we'd go to our party and have a good night, and people would always ask, who's dressed you, and then they'd be like, oh, Jen, she's right there. So subsequently I then became a celebrity stylist. It was just kind of a thing, and I was like, and I wasn't chasing it, and I wasn't whatever, but then I was offered a TV show and all kinds of things, and I was like, oh, I'm not a reality TV star, come on. And then I did a TV show, and then I became a reality TV
So wait, so you did one as a stylist or an actress?
I did it as myself, as a designer in LA, and that was kind of the agreement. I was advised by a woman called Marky Costello, which is Abbott Costello's granddaughter. And she's a shark, and she's lovely. She's hilarious. She's like family. So she said, Ginge, do the show and create your own media and start to create your own image, because that's really intelligent. And I was like, God, you are good.
And this was a reality show.
And
How long ago was
2004,
it?
actually.
Okay.
And then I was like,
So you were young, too, in
I don't
2004.
remember how old I was. But, you know, it was about surfing, and it was a TV show, and you know, I said...
What, can we say what network it was on?
Oh, goodness. Yes, Logo was the network.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So,
Viacom owned, yeah. And then they started to talk about, you know, other shows, and you want your own show, and I was like, oh, definitely not. That's not the point of this. And then because then when the show aired, I ran away, and I moved to London, but I didn't tell anybody, not even my family. And like...
No surfing in London. You were
No,
safe.
there was nothing that I was doing was in London.
You didn't tell anybody that you were moving to London, or that the
No,
show
that I
was
was
airing?
Both.
Okay.
Clean break. We love
Yeah,
it.
totally.
Really? All right. You
I was
hid.
being dramatic.
Okay.
And so I left, and my sister was looking for me, obviously, my sister. And she's like, where are you? And I was like, I'm in the UK. And she's like, are you coming back? And I said, I'm not sure. And she's like, are you kidding me? Gingi, like, what are you doing? And I was like, I just need a moment. Like, you know, and she's like, what are you doing? Like, what does, you know, my sister makes, her mind is just very reasonable and sensible. Yeah. And I said, look, there's nothing really for me in LA. She's like, you have a show. Like, what are you talking about? It just aired. Like, you're doing great over here. And I was like, that's in my world, in line of work, that's not really doing that great. That's like, it's like a side project. Yeah. And that's not my trajectory either. And I am not going to stay there and cultivate that. You know, everybody was going for, like, you know, what's her name? What's the really famous stylist? Zoe?
Oh, yeah. Zoe,
yeah.
She was just becoming known then. And, you know, they were like, you could do that. You could be another one of that. And I was like, why would I want to be another one of something that is someone? And no, I am that naturally, but that's not my goal, is to like have that show and do that thing and chase that. I'm not an actress. I'm not a whatever. I don't have that passion. I've been offered roles several times when my friends were producers, like, Ginge, read for us. And I'm just like, it's not, you can't force something.
What I love about you is that you follow your passion, and you know when something's right, and you know when something's not right. And
Body
a lot
tells
of people,
you. The body tells
and
you.
a lot of people just keep moving forward even when they know it's not right. Because we all know.
That's
we all
not
know.
living.
And that's, you know, as coaches, we help people figure out why things in their life are falling apart and not working, because they're not following their true passion.
They're not living.
And and everything else, it's snowball effect starts to
Sure.
fall. For you, it's not right. Yep, you do it. You put the brakes on, and you do an about face, and you go into where you feel like you might find where it is right. And that's really what brought you to this clothing line, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
I just want to go back to the London bit. So
No,
how long were you in London for? And
5 years.
5 years. And is that where you started working on the line?
Yes.
You did.
Oh,
I
okay.
legitimately gosh, it was ridiculous. I made friends, obviously, like naturally getting there and whatever. And people would invite me, you know, they holiday. I moved there in December, like 5 days before Christmas. And that's why my sister was like, where the hell are you? And I was like, yeah, I'm in London. She's like, what the hell exactly? And then I started questioning my own ridiculous decisions. And it was freezing in London. Nobody's in the city. Everybody goes on holiday, and nobody's around.
They're all in the bars.
Yeah, right.
Staying warm.
They
were
were
all-
a 2-week holiday. The week before Christmas and the week after,
Yeah,
up to the
precisely.
New Year.
The pub.
Everything's closed. Everybody's wearing...
It's true.
They're wearing little baubles from their ears.
You're absolutely right. They're all in Mallorca, Spain. They're all in the
exactly.
Mediterranean. They're all, that's what they
That's
do.
their
So I was
holiday.
like, Ginge, you're an idiot. You just moved to the most freezing cold country that you've never
The
been
worst
to.
time of year.
Worst time of the year.
It's the best time of year.
You're missing your family. You're doing all the things. Like, what are you doing exactly? But that's what I do. I go with what I feel, and that's what felt
what
right.
I was saying. Yeah.
And-
And then how did that lead you into getting
before,
back into
mind you,
and
before I had
designing?
left for London, I was I met a friend of mine in a for some drinks in a bar here in Hollywood, and she walked in and she looked dirty, and this is a woman that just she wears Christian Louboutins at any given hour of the day, and she dresses very well, and she she had mud on her legitimately, like she looked like she had been cleaning a chimney or something. And I said to her, why do you look like a ranch hand? Like, what are you doing exactly?
Yeah.
She's like, I've been playing with my horse today. Come on, like, don't be a jerk. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, makes sense. And I was like, but still, why do you look like this?
Ever the stylist.
Yeah, right, precisely. I'm like, I've got to help you. And it was born then, right then, there was the light bulb. And when I was...
So it was here then?
It was here, yes, precisely.
But you went away, and
I went
then
away,
it started
and kind of the seed
manifesting.
continued. And being in London, it was just a confirmation because everywhere you look, it's the royals and the horses and the knights and all the things. And
it's so funny. Just when you said it's the coldest place you've ever been, it's so funny because most young boys as well, but obviously young girls, they all ride horses. I mean, it's so huge in Europe. I mean, the riding horses, taking care of them, and
of course,
it's just
just part of their growing up. And
so
my mind is very quick to things, so I realized just how imperative that was to the families, to the generations. If the grandmother rode, the mother and the daughter and the granddaughter, all the things. And for me, that was a solid market, and that's where it was. And my friend who has money looked like, I can't say it on air, but, I said to her, well, how much did you pay for those pants? And she told me, and I said, and my eyes opened, and I said, how much did you pay for those boots? And she's like, and she told me, and I realized her need for those things. She was going to go through them. She's an athlete. There's going to be holes. Mm-hmm. They're not going to last. It's a perpetual purchase, right? Yeah. So for me in fashion, nothing is safe. You can't say this is going to be in next month or whatever. But this was a market that was solid, and the oldest history, sport and under history.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There we go. So then they started to come together, and the ideas started to mold and form. And then I'm very visual, and I was around London and all the architecture and the buildings and the parks and the horses and the gates of the castle and everything just started becoming very visual for me. And so I started to research, and I did market research for 2 whole years. I went to horse shows, and I studied in their movements and all the things, and I looked at numbers and statistics globally, not just in, and I realized the UK was in fact the center for that, and I was right in the center, so I figured I was right in the right place to be there.
Incredible. Wow, divinely guided.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
See? I knew I had to go to London.
And so what so now you have to put this great and wonderful research and idea to
A
reality.
real plan.
You have to actually get materials.
Yeah.
Get a way to make them and manufacture them, and how did that all
Well,
play
before
out?
we go to that, can I just go to the name? Because you came up with the
Oh,
name
yeah.
and
Of
the
course.
history behind the name, because
course.
that's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually, I was helping a friend who's a painter. He had a show, and he was like, God, I'm just stressing to get these pieces out. And he's like, hey, there's a layer that you can do that I don't have to do. He's like, you just have to paint words and follow my font and just paint these words. He gave me a list, and he's like, paint these words on this canvas. 7 a.m., we're painting canvases. And in all of these letters in front of me, Equites, the word legitimately came to me out of nowhere. Wow. And I was like, Equites, what is that even? I don't understand. What does that mean? And I put the paintbrush down, and my little platter or cardboard that had paint on it, I just threw it down. And I went over to the computer, and I typed in Equites, and what came up just blew me away. It was the history, it was the Latin root, mind you, and Latin was the first language I taught myself at 16 when my mother said I was crazy. She's like, why are you teaching yourself that? It's dead, Gingi. And I was like, Mother, nothing is dead. So anyway, the Equites being a Latin word, that was the first thing that drew me into reading the whole history. And then it was the Roman knights, and it was the men that went away to fight for war. They were all forced to fight, right? But these men, specifically the Equites, they were the elitist of the country. They were the money. They had wealth. So they didn't want to die on the battlefield, so they had the proper swordsmanship and training, and they rode to the battlefield with the royals, and they were known as this elitist group called the Equites, and it made everything. You can imagine the mind of a fashion designer going crazy with
that's
horses
like
and models and knights. Oh my!
All that information flooding through. Oh my God, that's so cool.
That's how it happens.
And now, I'm just curious, had you already decided that you were going to, the market was the equestrian market, or did that, which came first?
I did actually. I decided the market was the way first, and the name came later. Yeah, and just kind of filled in that blank for me, and created endless campaign possibilities.
And so how did it all come together? And
then I
then
started.
your travels kicked in.
I then had to be a big girl and make a business plan.
Yeah.
That was quite possibly the worst year and a half. It took me a long time, and I was heavily advised by friends of mine that have global companies. You know, I would tap into them, and I'd give them a phone call, and I'd say, hey, I'm thinking of this. What should I do? And they said, you need a business plan, and you're going to need some investment because this is a venture, and this is big, and, all the things that you're looking to do, it's fashion. And, they thought the general. Yeah. And so they gave me all these templates, and as a creative, you look at something that's structured and my mind scrambles and I'm like, I'm never going to figure this out. But I forced myself to really sit with that and make it work. And I trained my mind to think very strategically in that way, like a business person instead of just a creative.
So you balanced your left brain, right brain.
That's right.
Had to.
That's right. I'm a Gemini, so it's a little bit easier.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you have your business plan.
Yes.
So then I worked on that. Then I worked on my 5-year projections with 6 accountant firms. I made sure those numbers were tight because I didn't want to overshoot. I didn't want to say something was greatly happening, especially when you're going to go ask for people's money and investment. You really want to make sure you don't muck that up. Hey?
Yeah.
Yes, so I made sure that was right, and I felt strong about that. And then I came back to the States. And I was working with a costume designer on some movies, and we were making pieces in his house, and he's a bit of a wizard, and we're friends, and whatever. And I asked him, hey, I have an idea for this leather pant, this riding pant that I want to make. And I said, could I maybe pay you to help me with that? Because he was the best costume designer in the industry. Mm-hmm. And I knew if anyone could do it, he could. And he looked at the pen. He said, sure, give it to me. I'll let you know what I think. The next day, we're in the studio again, and we're making a pair of gloves for a very famous movie and high definition lenses and everything. I mean, he was the one. Yeah. And he said to me, Gingi, this is impossible. And he throws my sketches at me legitimately. And he's like, nobody's ever going to do this. And he was like, I'm certainly not going to do it. You can't afford me to do this. He's like, there's 18 seams in this pant. He's like, seams only, my seams have 4. And I saw the limitation in him, and I saw the resistance. And then I was like, oh God, his ego is far too big. I don't want to work with him anyway. Yeah. And then I legitimately, I'd been hearing through conversations with my friends and stuff. I'd seen all these leather bags and jewelry and things coming out of Bali. And I kept hearing leather, Bali. It was a seed that I had in my mind. And just a week prior to my conversation with the dude, I had another conversation with the lady who said, I'm closing my factory in Bali and my workers need work. And oh my gosh, you're a designer. I would love to connect you. And then all these things and all these little seeds of Bali started coming in.
Yeah, there's a reason.
So the minute he said, this is impossible, when somebody tells me no, I get this fire within me that says, I'm going to find a way. And I opened my computer and I booked a ticket to Bali one way right then when he said no.
Oh my God. And how long ago was
I
this?
said, I'm going to go make these pants.
And you did.
And I did.
So yes, how long ago was this?
That was probably about 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe 4, but around 3 years.
And how long did it take you from taking off to Bali and getting all the ducks in a row and everything into play to actually start manufacturing?
I started, I again, that feeling to go to Bali and whatever, that decision like I made to go to London, the same thing happened with Bali. I made the decision, I went. I got there and, I was asking around, because there's a lot of designers there. I was like, wow, this is where they are keeping you all. It's like an island.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. True story. It is not only paradise, it is designer's heaven. So people who, because, we're artists, we can't really afford to do things like other people can do. So going to another country and working with real artisans is a dream for us. Mm-hmm. They pass down wood carving techniques through the generations. They prayed to temples for their ancestors, information to enter their bodies and things like that. I mean, it's lovely. Yeah. The reverence taken.
There's the Reiki coming in.
Yeah.
The channeling.
All of it. And it was so spiritual there, and it felt like home. So I stayed. And also, so I think maybe I didn't know what to do. I went to a yoga class as soon as I got to the end. I was like, yoga
helps you get it all clear in your head.
And in that yoga class, I met a designer. And this, yes. And in this, and then we went to lunch. And then she said, do you need a job? And I said, yes. And she said, do you know how to produce? Could you be my production manager? And I said, in my bloody sleep.
Yeah. And she hit on the right person.
Yeah,
wow.
For sure. And she's like, I have
Can I just ask you, what was different about this time? Because you'd done this job before, and it didn't fulfill you, and you left. So what was different about this woman? What was the sense that you got that you wanted to do that there?
Well, she wasn't a big corporation, and she was on an island. Let's be honest.
So you were in a better
Yes.
environment,
Yes.
a better situation. Plus, you already had the wheels turning that you wanted to manufacture there yourself.
Well,
so
I
why
had the
not
knowledge and the
yes.
experience. It was a piece of cake for me. I just said, I've done this for the last 10 to 12 years. It's not
Yes.
hard for me. And actually, this is going to help me figure out how I'm going to do mine.
Do your own line.
Exactly.
So how long did you stay at that job before you went into your own line?
Not long. I got her set up. Maybe it took me about maybe 2 months or something at the very most. Maybe 3. I don't know. I feel like it was less though. And then I started asking around, and everyone was like, "Oh, Gingi, you can't ask for people's resources here. You can't ask. People aren't going to share. People have been here for 10 years looking for those things, and it's really disrespectful for you to come around and just start asking." And I said, "People don't share." I said, "That's very strange." And then actually, lo and behold, as soon as people started telling me how terrible I was for coming on this island and thinking that I could have their resources, the most notable designer on that island, who makes the most stunning pieces, I was introduced by friends in other countries. They said, "Oh, you're on the island. Well, so is this person. You should meet him." And I didn't know who he was, and everybody knew who he was on the island. And we met, and he said, "I really like you. You know," he's like, "You really have got it. Like you really have got a good head on your shoulders." And he said, "Can I ask you?" He's like, "Do you need a workshop and tailors? Because I'm ready to get rid of mine. I'm moving into another art space and art form, and I already have jobs lined up globally, and I've got to go."
I love how people ask you and you don't ask them. Right? It's just
But,
like,
yeah.
do you need a job?
Yeah,
do you need a space? Do you need? It's like, wow, opening
there's
up
an
the
openness.
universe.
This is why you follow your
This
heart,
is-
not your
yeah.
head.
Exactly.
I love it, and I love
Exactly.
this message. Keep
Yeah.
going.
It's
Sorry.
the way. I was just on the phone actually, and I have a really lovely advisor, and he used to work with the House of Chanel for over 10 years, and he's quite notable, and he's a very good friend of mine, and he is also part of Equites, and he says to me, he just laughs at me in my stories because this is just the way. That's how I found him as well. I found him on a boat, and he heard my story, and he was so inspired by what I was working on. He was like, "I want to help you, whatever it looks like. I want to help you because you get it. You understand what needs to happen." He's like, "The industry is terrible." And I said, "I know."
Yeah.
And it's like, we've all been there.
Wow. Well, I know what I do want to make sure we hit on before
Sure.
because we're getting close in time. I mean, I want you to tell us more about the line and things like that. But I do know that you have an up and coming event.
I
And I
do.
want you to talk about that.
So
Debbie and I want you
exciting.
to talk about
Yes.
that so that we
Yes.
don't
Thank you.
shove it in at the end.
Yeah.
No, this is wonderful. Actually, the whole purpose of this is to do better. To do better by way of our planet, because we live here. We need to act like it.
Yeah.
And
it's a conscientious
absolutely,
kind of awakening that
yes, and
people need to understand.
Please, like if you have one product sitting next to another product, and one product is the old way product, and this other product has taken the steps necessary, and you feel good about spending your money on that product, and you feel good about what's happening with this company, why would you choose the other way?
Yeah.
And actually my way is simpler. It's less use, less everything, less consumption, less production. Anyway, so the point of that is where, who can I support? How can I help? And, getting my materials from indigenous peoples and, being of native blood and all the things. I've always wanted to have a closer relationship with, my tribe's peoples and know the ways of them, because I feel very deeply connected to nature. I've never understood it, but I feel like that's why I want it so close to the ground and so close to earth. I want no chemicals. I remove all chemical processes. I do vegetable dyes, and I make a point that if you take my garment off and decide you don't want it anymore and you want to throw it in the forest is going to take it back. It's kind of the point, right? I mean, maybe not the metal buttons. Please remove the hardware, guys. Remove the hardware, put them around a string, and make them a necklace. But, it's... So I really wanted to be closer to the native tribes, and I wanted to learn, and I wanted to learn about my heritage, moreover. And then asking them for pieces and all the things, I now have very close relationships with indigenous tribes and that are here in California and all over the country. And this is where I get my materials. And they called me and they came to me and they said, "Hey, sis, we need some media. We need some, we need, they didn't even use the word media because they're just so much more simple than that. They said, we need a camera person. And I said, what for what? What are you working on? And he said, oh, well, we're bringing 20 nations together under the solar eclipse for a very important event. And we're going to build a village as we used to do back in the ancient times. And we're going to show people how to build greenhouses, how to live off the land. We're going to have workshops for the kids. We're going to have elders from all corners of everywhere coming together.
Goodness. I'm there
to teach. Please come.
What's the name of the event?
It's called Symbiosis, and it's an event, and it's a festival. In fact, it's called the Transformational Festival. And what they've done is they're such beautiful people. They're friends of mine, the producers of this festival as well. And I usually just go because I love enjoying what they bring to the table. They're so beautiful and offering information. It's like a week of TED Talks and teaching you how to live and work together as a community.
So it's a week-long event?
I think it's 4 or 5 days efficiently.
What's the dates?
Do you have the dates? Yeah.
August 17th through the 23rd.
And where?
Oregon.
In Oregon.
In Oregon. It's just about maybe 30 minutes out of Bend, Oregon, and it's on a natural reserve, and it is stunning. I've been to the location because we went with the natives and we blessed the land, because that's what we do as natives. We ask permission to be there before we bring our electronic music and stomping of our feet on that ground, because there's spirit world everywhere, and you have to ask permission and work in conjunction with them and together, and that's the way together. Everything should be together, and our world is so separated by fear and war and all these things that we need to balance that.
So if any of our listeners are interested in attending this event, how do they contact you, or what's the website?
Go online. It is I think it's symbiosisfestival.com.
Will you spell that?
SYMBIOSIS.
Yes.
Symbiosis.
Yes.
And you can Google it, and it's the Symbiosis Gathering, Symbiosis Event, Symbiosis Festival, and we officially are the One Nation Camp. And this is where the 20 nations are coming together, elders, grandmothers, grandfathers, chiefs, you name it, and they're going to show you just how to work in reverence with nature and with, the animals and the plants and the medicines, and together, actually, on the side, we are working on building a library of this knowledge so we can have it here in this country forever for everyone to have.
Yeah.
Do you get to showcase your line there at all?
No. See, this is the whole purpose of why I do what I do, is so that I can be supportive of what really matters, so we can make an efficient change. The label is gorgeous in its own ways, and it's good to have,
because it's so in line with what
but I also want to
is
stress
about.
that it's not just. I mean, I know that your niche is equestrian, but these garments are. I mean, if I was younger, I'd be wearing these on the street, out in clubs.
I wear them all the time.
Well, exactly. They're stunningly beautiful.
You can wear them. They're for everyone. They're actually 80% of the labels are unisex, because I couldn't be bothered to have too much. It needed to make sense.
But I mean, those leather pants. I mean, I'm almost 60. I don't think I should be running around in those leather pants.
You can.
Honey, everybody needs a pair of leather pants in their life.
That's why I made them.
I think you have a pair.
So
I
much.
think I've seen a pair that you have.
I have a pair. Yes, I do have a pair.
You see, and you
But they
can't
don't have
forget
18
the number of our
they
age.
don't
Who
have
cares how old we are?
18 seams in them, but it's so that's incredible. But
wait, I had a question. Is it always in Oregon? Always in Bend?
I think they move around each year for different
Okay.
locations, dependent on where they are given the what do you call permission?
The permission to use
right.
the land.
Yes, and so this piece of land is super special, and they're actually allowing other festivals to come in and have their own portion in their own area, because they're so about togetherness that they're not focusing on this is our festival.
Sure.
They want all the festival people who do the right things to come in and have their offerings in their own way. And that's why they've offered for the natives to have their own entire village. It is just so stunning what the world is doing these days. And I'm no longer alone. Everybody is on the same journey and path, it seems, or anyway, the people that I come in contact with. And it's beautiful. We really are coming around and healing ourselves.
I used to do an awful lot of. I haven't done it in a few years now, probably about 5 years. But I would do so many Native American sweat lodges with the Lakota Dakotas.
Oh, lovely.
But yeah, but I mean, definitely not westernized versions of sweat lodges. They were
Right. No, they're serious.
totally-
You went and participated.
Oh yeah,
not yeah.
no. I, well,
okay.
no. I would, sometimes I would like be the water bearer or something too.
Oh,
Sometimes
okay.
I'd get
So you would work.
involved, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I probably did about 70 sweat lodges.
Really?
And the natives, they just want to offer, they just want to
Absolutely. They're
bring
so
other people in,
powerful.
and they want to and everything they do has a purpose and a ritual, and every step they take is so
Exactly.
calculated and beautiful, and giving back to the cycle of
Yeah.
life. And that's what you do with if I can can I give websites of the
Absolutely.
natives?
That's what
Please.
I want
Yeah.
you to do,
Yeah,
and
that'd be
yours
lovely.
as
Yeah,
well.
let's get
'cause
them in right now,
We're
'cause-
winding down. We're in
Yeah.
our last minute.
So for the natives, indigobridge.com is one, and veteransupport.com is another. And these are the people that were out at Standing Rock. And
Yeah.
these are the gentlemen that I directly work with that actually are some of my suppliers and things like that. And we help each other, and we're all here to just bring you a better way. So them by
Well,
sharing their knowledge,
yeah.
and me with the label.
Well, it's so much. What I love about Native American culture is that it's the respect of the ancestors, and that everything is our ancestors, even
Respect
the
of
rocks,
everything.
the earth, everything,
Absolutely.
and the 7 generations that are going to be coming after us.
Yes.
Just keeping that in mind
Yes.
and
And
honoring
I like
the
that
earth.
coming around again, because I think it was shoved aside for so long.
That's right.
You know?
They
big
need it's time
business
for them, and I'm happy to give them a platform via Equites in any way, in any work I do, to give them that stage to bring the attention to this is the proper healing, and it's for everyone.
It's shocking. I mean, what is it that Native Americans weren't even allowed to do their own ceremonies until when was it? Like the late 70s or something.
That's
It was
crazy.
banned. It was. I mean, it's insane that it was
And-
illegal.
Well, they fear
do
things
something.
that are
First.
correct because they want to control, and that's fear based, and
Yeah.
that doesn't exist. That's not what we were brought here to do. We're meant here to thrive. If you cut your finger, what happens? White blood cells rush to the
Yes.
surface because we are healing
It's
entities.
trying to heal.
The earth
Yeah.
is trying to heal herself now. So.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Oh my goodness, that was so incredible. Thank
Give
you
your
so
website
much.
Oh,
again.
the website.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So the website is www.equites.co.uk.
Okay.
Beautiful. And please go and visit. The photographs are stunning.
Oh, thank
Final
you.
thought in this whole thing, just one last thing to leave our audience with is the whole reason why you do what you do, and you are who you are.
Oh, we are the Green Warriors, and we have returned, and we are all here, and it's all going in such a right direction. Thank you for walking with us. Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
one.
And thank you.
We'll
for-
see
Thank you.
Thank you
Gingi.
so much.
Come and sharing your message. It's so beautiful.
Our pleasure, really. Thank
you so much.
Yes.
And
Well,
thank
yes,
you,
join
everybody,
us.
for
Yep.
joining us today. We're here every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Del Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul. We're going to see you next week.
Have a wonderful week and join us, as Debbie said, 2 p.m. live on latalklive.com.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Oh, that was so good, ladies.
So just dance, dance, dance. So just dance, dance, dance. Ooh, it's something magical.
Thank you for tuning into LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network, original reality radio, handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk. Stay tuned.